Hey, welcome to the show. My name is Arminda, and I want to talk about your ego today. And man, you just got to love that ego. But let's really get down into it and what happens when ego is really loud. And I'm going to use an analogy. That will only work for some of the population, I realize, but it's just so good. So I just want to use this. So if you've seen the movie Monsters, Inc., I don't need to say much more. First of all, yay you, because Monsters, Inc. rocks. It's like the best movie ever. And when they went and did the prequel to that, Monsters University, could not have made me any happier. Anyway, you've got your two big characters. Yes, there's Mike, and he's awesome, but he's not in this metaphor that I'm going to use. You've got Sully, the big blue guy, okay? He's the big blue monster, and I'm talking the original Monsters, Inc. And then you have the human child that they call Boo. And at the beginning, what happens? When Boo arrives, Sully is freaked out. In fact, he and Mike both, they scream a lot because they're so scared of this little human child. And so they make a lot of noise. And Boo makes a lot of noise because when the monsters are screaming, she's screaming, and everybody's screaming and making a lot of noise. And as the movie progresses, there's something that happens in that relationship because Sully, the big blue guy, has an awareness. He realizes that Boo cannot hurt him. That everything he's been told his whole life, everything he's built his entire career around, is actually false. It's not true. And that Boo can't hurt him. And so what he does instead is he loves her. And he reaches out, he holds her hand because she's scared and she's frightened. That's why she's loud, because she wants to be seen and she wants some attention and she just wants to be loved. And so when Sully is able to do that for her, she's quiet. So this is beautiful. And then they come up with some solutions on getting her back where she needs to go. But if we flip this around and look at it in a different way, and imagine for me with a moment that your ego is actually Boo. That little tiny human child represents your ego. And Sully, the big blue guy, represents what I'm going to refer to as your authentic self. Your self that knows things, that is actually a whole lot bigger than your ego. Ego has a really loud voice, but not a lot of experience. It tells you that it has experience, but in fact, it's very small. And rather than what we tend to do is we tend to try to push ego out of the way and say, oh my gosh, get out of the room. You don't know what you're doing here and you freak me out and you're not. And so we make a lot of noise and ego screams really loud. And because ego screams really loud, we say, okay, you can stay. And then we do what ego wants to do. Rather, step into the awareness that you're big and you're blue and furry and awesome, just like Sully, and see your ego. Hold it by the hand. Love it. Thank it for being there. Thank it for its ideas. It doesn't mean you have to listen to the ideas or follow the advice. Simply acknowledge, okay, that's just ego talking. It's okay. Come on in. Come on in, ego. There's space for you to sit next to me. Because ego is never, ever, 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 ever going to go away. In fact, it can be really useful. Ego can oftentimes alert us to things that we're not aware, and that can be extremely useful and helpful. So we always want to acknowledge what we're hearing from ego and then run it through the filter. Run it through the filter of what your authentic self, your space inside of you, that when you're calm and collected and quiet, that is peaceful, that is aware, it is knowing, it has solutions. See, that's yourself. That's where we want to tap into that space inside of you. And if you need the visual, it's the big blue guy who's bigger, who has a lot more life experience, who has a broader perspective because he's way taller. He can lift and carry things that ego says, oh, that's too heavy, or that's too big, that's too scary. And big blue, Sully, furry guy can say, we got this. Come on along, I'll hold your hand, but we got this. So that's really what I want to invite you to think about, is that when you're feeling uncomfortable, the discomfort on your inside because of something that's coming forward for you, maybe there's, right, maybe you're just feeling uncomfortable because you learned something about yourself. You're seeing a pattern of behavior in yourself that you don't like, and you want a quick fix to that. And then all of a sudden, when you think you're going to fix it or resolve it, you start feeling that discomfort on the inside. That's just ego. That's ego making a racket. And that's okay. So it's okay, because we've been doing it this way for a long time. I get it. I get that you would be uncomfortable with change. But I'm big blue furry, and I got it. There's space in here for us to make some changes, and it's not going to be scary at all. So really acknowledge that ego has a voice. The voice is always going to be there. It's just how much value and credibility we give to ego. We want to start shifting away from value and credibility. We simply want to acknowledge, validate, and then shift the responsibility for the decision making and the choices and the action and the being of ourselves over to the big blue furry guy, to the authentic self that's inside of you, that has the answers. When you quiet things down, you can really hear that peaceful place inside of you saying, yeah, this feels right to pursue this. That's the voice that I want you to hear. Let me know what thoughts, comments, questions, additional ideas you have. Coach@ArmindaLindsay.com.